Riot dropped a new minigame in the client called The Battle of Koeshin, which continues Xin Zhao's mini-comic, The Pilgrimage, where we see him returning to Ionia during the Spirit Blossom Festival. The minigame is a side-scrolling beat-em-up, like those old-school games where you just move left to right and have to fight through waves of enemies until you reach the final boss. You move with WASD, jump with the spacebar, attack with J, use your special with K, summon the spirit with L, and switch characters with E. The game has a story mode, which we'll talk about in a second, and arcade mode, which skips all the cutscenes and just lets you go ham. You can also play with a second player in the arcade mode, using local co-op. Unfortunately, there's no online mode, but it's super easy to just give a friend remote access to your PC, so you can play together anyway. You can earn points as you go, but the game also has a style points system, where you get even more points for landing creative combos instead of just spamming the same one. You lose style points if you stand still too long or take damage. Style points are ranked in tiers: D, C, B, A, S, and S+. Obviously, the higher your tier, the more points you get. You also earn 1 point every minute you play any mode on the client, except TFT. You can also get point bonuses by following these little tricks. If you play as Xin Zhao or Yunara, you'll get an extra 30% points. Equipping any Spirit Blossom skins add an extra plus 30% points. And equipping a Spirit Blossom 2025 skin will double your points. Riot really knows how to make that cash. These percentages don't stack, with the max boost being 100%. Once you hit 15 points, you earn a petal. You can trade petals at the courtyard for rewards like icons and interactions with the spirits. After the first petal, it takes 125 points to get the second one, and each one after that costs 5 more. Each spirit has its own progression path: D, C, B, A, S, and S+. In total, you'll need 20 petals to fully level up all the spirits. The spirits can be summoned during gameplay to help you out, each with their own special skill. Karma's is called Enlightened Soul. She shoots a projectile from the sky that damages and knocks up nearby enemies. Irelia's is Blade Surge. She dashes through all enemies on screen, tossing them into the air and freezing them for a bit before knocking them back. Kale's is Divine Sentence. She gives you a temporary invulnerability shield that explodes when it ends, damaging all nearby enemies. Zed's is Living Shadows and Bladed Shuriken. He spreads shadows across the screen that hurls shurikens in the direction of your attacks. And just a heads up, these aren't the champions themselves. These are Spirit Blossom spirits that the champions represent. It's not like, I don't know, Thresh is literally the collector, for example. You can also pick up items during the game, either by finding them on the map or picking them up from defeated enemies. The items are Onigiri, which restores 100 HP and adds plus 50 to the score if your HP is full. Dango, which restores 200 HP and adds plus 100 to the score if your HP is full. Tea, which restores 400 spirit and adds plus 50 to the score if your spirit is full. And Sake, which restores 800 spirit and adds plus 100 to the score if your spirit is full. Anyway, now that we covered the gameplay, let's get into the story. The story starts with Xin Zhao and Kennen meditating at the Kinku Temple in Koeshin. Suddenly, there's an arcane explosion in the nearby mountains, and Kennen instantly recognizes it as a demon invasion. Kennen decides to return to the Kinku and talk to Shin and Mayim, Akali's mom. Meanwhile, Xin Zhao heads off alone to confront the demons. On the way, Xin Zhao runs into Yunara, who just finished off a few Azakana herself. He notices she's a Kinku and finds that weird since Kennen told him he was the only Kinku at the temple. When she hears Kennen's name, Yunara says she needs to speak to him. When Xin tells her he went to talk to the Eye of Twilight before going out to fight the demons, she gets frustrated. Like, even after all these years, nothing has changed. Yunara says she trusts Xin Zhao, and over time, he starts to trust her too, as they fight demons together. Deeper into the forest, they come across a statue of the Mother of the Forest. Xin Zhao says she's a spirit who wants to live like mortals and feel what we feel, kinda like Morgana. This spirit was created by Ionia's first spirit, the one represented by Karma. She had a sister spirit, which is represented by Kale's Spirit Blossom skin. Because Morgana's spirit wanted to feel mortal emotions, she ended up creating both good and bad spirits, the Kanme and the Akana. Because of this, the spirit of Ionia imprisoned her in the forest as a punishment, and she became known as the Mother of the Forest. After defeating more Azakana, they run into a stronger demon who looks like the Mother of the Forest, but it's just a disguise. After their first fight, the demon escapes. Yunara and Xin Zhao decide to chase it down and destroy it to restore the true spirit's name. They continue through another forest, and Yunara is horrified at how corrupt it is. Eventually, they come across a spiritual shrine that hasn't been tainted by demons and was made to honor the spirits. Here, Xin Zhao takes a moment to honor his fallen Ionian comrades, the ones that he couldn't protect after being kidnapped during the Enoxian invasion. As they continue to push forward, they see a giant creature that looks a lot like Otacon passing it by in the distance. Neither of them can tell exactly what it is, just that it's some kind of evil spirit. And yeah, it looks a little different, but we've seen Otacon take different forms before, so maybe this is a new form created after its fusion with the Kadashli, Sanuzal's old general. So here's a thought. What if LeBlanc already sent Otacon to track down the darkened weapon? It's a perfect time since the Spirit Blossom Festival is happening and the spiritual realm is wide open because of the Hyper Bloom. Otacon could be taking advantage of that to break into the temple and steal the weapon from Yunara's master. He'd have something to do to avoid touching the weapon directly though, since the Darkened can bond with spirits. There's proof of that in the Darkened named Pra, who's sealed inside of a fan between the physical and spiritual realms. Her host is a dragon spirit from Ionia, according to the wiki. Anyway, they fight through more demons and eventually run into the fake mother of the forest again. She looks physically different now, which means she probably fed and got stronger. They defeat her again, but she still manages to escape. As they chase her, they chat about Kennen. Yunara says he was arrogant, but that was just his way. She says her weapons, called the Aeon Urna, actually belonged to him, but he entrusted them to her a long time ago. Yunara asks Xin Zhao why he knows so little about the Kinku, even though he's an Ionian. He explains that most of his life he was spent in Noxus and then Demacia, and then came back to the Kinku, hoping to understand if his path had truly been honorable. She tells him not to stake his life on Kinku's modern teachings, and says he should follow his heart. That mindset honestly reminds me of Zed. Xin Zhao eventually asks her about her relationship with Kennen, but she doesn't really answer. She just says that they disagree on a few things, nothing more. When they get to the port city, Yunara is horrified by how many people the demons have killed, but Xin Zhao calms her down and they keep going. Finally, they find the fake mother of the forest again, who's even stronger now after feeding some more. Before the final battle, Yunara prays, preparing them for the fight. After a difficult battle, Xin Zhao jams his spear through the demon's chest, defeating it for good, but breaking his spear in the process. Even with the demon gone, Yunara says she still feels something off, so they head back to Koeshin. Upon their return, they meet Kennen, who commends Xin Zhao on their safe return. However, he is cut off by Yunara, who tells him that she needs to speak with the Eye of the Twilight. Shaken by Yunara's appearance, Kennen stammers, bringing up her abandoned post, probably referring to the temple Yunara guarded in the spirit realm. Suddenly, they sense an intruder at the Temple of Twilight. Yunara says that's impossible, since no one's even supposed to know that exists. The game ends with 3 of them heading off together to find the intruder who broke through the temple's defenses. Even though it doesn't push the main story forward too much, this minigame gave us a lot of new lore for Ionia specifically. We got to see more types of Kanmei and Arcana, and got more backstory about Ionia's original spirits. And about the disturbance in the Kinku Temple, the game started there. So could the temple invaders already be Noxians? The game showed us a demon that's probably Otacon, so this imbalance might be LeBlanc's doing. She could already be trying to break into the spirit realm. We still don't know who the host will be, but from what we've seen, the Darken is probably the new champion for Act 3. A lot of leakers in the community, especially those following Big Bad Bear's videos, are saying that Yunara's master is going to be the Knight of Roses. So maybe these two aren't two different champions, they're just one. Back to the first theory. What if LeBlanc was disguised this whole time as an officer on that ship that brought Xin Zhao to Ionia? A bunch of men stayed behind on the ship, freaked out by the Spirit Blossom, thinking it was unholy or terrifying. That makes sense since they're from Demacia. However, LeBlanc could have easily been manipulating one of the officers to get the weapon for her. She's shown up in multiple places at once before, pretending to be regular people to influence things, usually through her clones. For example, we know that one of her clones was in Demacia, watching Xin Zhao in the palace gardens, so maybe she used this trip to put her plan into motion. There's so much that could happen next. What if Xin Zhao actually wields the Darkened Glaive, turns into a Darken, and then somehow comes back to normal afterward? That would be a sick way to give him a Darken skin. Now, we just have to see if Yunara's master is different from the other Darken. In the comic, he seemed pretty noble and neutral, but maybe he's gone mad, like the others from being sealed for so long, even though it was his own choice. I mean, look at Renekton. He chose to lock himself up with Xerath to keep him sealed, but after years of Xerath whispering in his ear, he lost his mind and blamed Nasus, who didn't even do anything wrong. So it's totally possible Yunara's master went crazy too. Also, in Yunara's champion theme video, where they showed the design process from early sketches to final art, there was like a little house in the spirit realm where she lived, and behind it, there was a part of a shrine where the Darkened Glaive was sealed. We've seen Riot change her lore before, Victor being the biggest example. So we could see a similar change with Xin Zhao. In-game, we saw Xin Zhao break his spirit fighting that demon, leaving him unarmed. So, like I mentioned earlier, what if he ends up temporarily using the Darkened weapon? It'd be boring if he just resisted it completely. Kain already does that. But Xin gets possessed, loses control, and then somehow breaks free and returns to normal. Then the Darkened could move on to a new permanent host. That would be a perfect excuse for a Darkened Xin Zhao skin without needing a full rework. And then the new Darkened champ could drop right after. But yeah, that's basically it. There's still a ton of content to come. Let's hope Riot gives us the answers we're waiting for. See you in the next video.